Hello my reading friends, and welcome back to another reading wrap up. So in my theme of trying to get this channel back on track, I am trying to catch up on my reading journal wrap up videos. So the last one that I filmed and posted was March, April, and it is now end of August. So I've got a bit to go through. I'm really going to try and get back onto filming these at least once a month. No, at least once every 2 months, if not ideally once a month, because I feel like the books are fresher in my head, it makes sense, it's relevant, it's content, like let's keep it going. So if you haven't watched one of these videos before, I essentially run through my reading journal and go through also, so I do the spreads and then also I go through a bit about the books, so you kind of get a bit of both. You get to see the spreads I've put together, and then I talk about the books themselves and what I thought of them, and yeah. So if you are interested in book content, you can follow me on Goodreads. I will try and remember to put the link in the description. If not, it's on my Instagram. I also would love to have you on Fable, because that's my new thing. I love Fable much more than Goodreads. Like, I use Goodreads a lot to track things and because it links to Kindle, but Fable is where it's at. So if you have either of those and we're not friends, please let me know and we can be friends. So I feel like a bit has changed since we went through in March and April. I've actually changed the format of the way that I am doing things, and then you'll see even May to June I do another change, which kind of is how I'm running now, and I'm much happier with my journal. So now at the start of every month this is like a template that I have that I just print out and literally stick it on. It's like a whole page sticker, and it is in the format that I like, although I have just tweaked it slightly for my next one in September. I'll show you what that looks like because I've already printed it, I just haven't laid it down. So it's very similar, like it's the same format. I just changed the font because I am obsessed with this new font, and I just reordered things a little bit differently in terms of, like, because I've been using this system now for a few months, I wanted to know, like, I know what I'm filling out and what I'm not, and so I've just kind of made, like, this 2.0. So really excited for that going forward, but we're not there yet. So May, I've got my calendar up the top, and I like to visually see what I'm reading and how long it's taking me to read. So I've got the colors there, and then like the books that coordinate to down the side. I originally was running with 10 books because that was my goal to read every month, but it's just not attainable. I think I've achieved it once this year. So my new goal is 5 books a month, which is much more reasonable, achievable, and then if I go over, great. So on my new one you saw I've got 8, because like if I can read 8 books a month, that's amazing, but I definitely don't need 10 spots. Then I do my like pie charts, which apparently I'm an idiot because the first couple of months my pie charts are just wrong. I couldn't work out how to do them, but I've gotten much better. So we'll see that. I then have any new releases I'm tracking, any arcs that I am reading or need to read in this month, and then my monthly TBR, which is something I've started doing because I would just go days without reading anything because my hardest thing is trying to think of the next book to read. So I put together a TBR and then my 2025 book tally, which, spoiler alert, as of August 20, what is it? 8th, which is today, I have actually finished my extended reading goal. So my reading goal at the start of the year was 25 books, and then I hit that pretty early on and I extended it to 50, and I've now hit 50, which I'm super thrilled about. So that is tracking, like at this stage I'd read 36 books, or 72%. So that's the format, and then we go into the book reviews. May was the month that I discovered my obsession with water-based books. So we'll see this develop in a few months, and I'll kind of, once we get to the end and where we are now in August, I'll explain how it's even developed further. But this was the real start of me being in love with water. So this book I got, it's called Sea of Evil and Desire. and it's by Jay Strelau. I got this as an ARC on NetGalley, which was this was my first ever ARC, so I was really excited about it as well. And it could not have been any better for me. I absolutely loved it. It is about a siren. No, this is not a siren. This is about what are they called? Those like seal things. So this is the problem, because it's been 4 months since I read it. The females who turn into seals, I can't think what they're called, and mermaids. And it takes place in like a underwater pirate ship. Like, it was so like, oh, the world. The setting. For me, I need to be invested in the setting. I've just read a book that was so highly anticipated for me and I ended up fucking hating it, and it's because the setting. I was never actually in the story. I was never in the world. I was never in the book. This, I was underwater. I was absolutely loving it. It takes place like off the coast of Scotland, which was really moody and well described, and then underwater. And yeah, this really kicked up Selkie. That's what they're called, Selkies and mermaids. This really kicked off the love of mine for underwater / water based books. I just love them. So it is a fantasy romance, and yeah, it is set in an underwater setting between Selkies and mermaids, and it's the first book in I don't know how many, there's more in the series, so first book in a series. And I just, yeah, I absolutely loved it. I really surprised myself. This was the first time I kind of put together a little, like I did a background, and then this is when I was transitioning between, glossy paper and matte paper, and I now use matte paper and it's changed my life. But this page is like kind of glossy, kind of matte. So I did the background, which was the water, and then I found some fan art. I don't think necessarily this is not fan art of this book, because this was an ARC and no one had read it when I had. This is just like general Selkie and merman, and then a pirate ship. And then I did some quotes as well. So I feel like, again, it was 4 months ago since I read it, so I'd love to be able to explain it a bit more. But if you love romantasy and you're looking for like a different setting, so it still has magic, it still has like that kind of thing, fantasy, but not the normal like fae, medieval-ish kind of world that we're so used to, give this a go, because it really was something so different. It is out now. I think it was out in June. And yeah, it was amazing. It was a great first book. It really set the scene of who they are and where they're going, and I can't wait to read more. Then I transitioned more so into matte paper. I started printing out my actual fan art and stuff in matte paper. I didn't really have my settings down pat, so at this stage they're a bit blurry, but you get the vibes, you know? So I read Butcher and Blackbird next, which I gave this 5 stars. I think you can see that, but I didn't say it. 5 stars. I then read Butcher and Blackbird. I kind of bought them on a whim. I was in the bookstore one day and I just was like, oh, I've heard about these. I don't really know much about them. They were pretty set. They had all 3. I'm just going to just buy them. And so I read the first one. It kind of disturbed me, which is weird for me to say, because like I am very into, I always hate saying I'm into true crime because that's really fucked up, but like I listen to true crime podcasts, and Forensic Files is my favorite all-time comfort show, especially the first couple of seasons where they didn't blur anything. So it's not like the concept of them being 2 serial killers and like the brutal, violent, gory descriptions really was the issue. It was more the sexual part of it, to be honest, and I pretty much read anything. I don't care. I don't have any triggers, or like I really don't care. But I just was not into this. It was like a lot. There was one scene in particular that if you've read it, you probably know. I have never read that before. And it was not my thing. And I almost was like, ugh, maybe I need a DNF. But I kept going. The story, the vibe, I liked the concept overall. I just feel like I reckon there was like a chapter that was literally just them boning, and like, again, I love spice. I love romance and spice in my books, but this was just next level. It was a whole chapter of just them together, and it just got like boring and repetitive, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. They're into each other, but yeah. So I gave it 3.5 stars. It was okay. I still haven't even gone back and read the next two because I've heard this one's the best, which is a bit concerning. If you have read the next two and you recommend them, let me know, because I did buy them. And I don't like to leave series unfinished, but yeah, at this stage, I haven't finished it. Then we go on to another book in the Freddie and Grace mystery series, which was the Christian fiction series that I accidentally ended up reading, and it's actually very funny because I have since read another Christian fiction series, which, if you know me, I'm probably the furthest thing from a Christian. I do not believe in religion, like, not my thing, but I ended up on this series because I had an arc for the 4th one, which you'll see in a bit, and then there's obviously 3 in the series that I had to read prior. And I don't know, I kind of just read past the God stuff and just, like, I just keep going. I do like the stories. I think they're really sweet. It's funny, I just said how much I love spice in my books, and these have absolutely no spice. They're so, like, tame and, like, sweet, but I kind of like that, honestly. It's kind of a nice change up. So yeah, this is the 3rd one. It's called The Juliet Code, and it was set in Venice in Italy, and again, it's a sweet, like, little story, but I feel like the world is what makes these so interesting. Like, you really are in the world with them. It's so descriptive, it's so, yeah, like, just really, you're really there. So I don't know that I have many followers who would be into Christian fiction, but if you want just like a really sweet historical romance with a bit of mystery but really vivid, interesting places and worlds, then I really recommend Freddie and Grace. The first one is set in like England, and it's all like kind of the Regency. I never know which one is Regency. I think it's Regency era. And the second one's set in Egypt, in the Age of Discovery, which is my favourite. This one's in Italy, and then the one we'll get to is in Scotland in the Highlands. And I just, yeah, if you want something just a little silly and not too serious, I really recommend them. And even if you don't like Christian stuff, which I do not, you just keep reading. It's not the end of the world. Then I read another, no, not another arc. Well, yeah, I guess I read an arc. This is an arc too. This is called Beneath a Desert Moon by S.R. Hawkins. No, this wasn't an arc. I tried to get an arc and I didn't get approved. So this came out and I read it. And it's called Beneath a Desert Moon by S.R. Hawkins. And it is my first ever captive romance. And it's romantasy, but it is romantasy done differently. It is, no, it's not even romantasy. It's like, what do they call it? Magical realism? I don't know. It's not that, there's not that much magic, but it's also not set in the real world. So do with that what you will. She is like an indigenous person to the land with magic, and he is like the colonizer captive, which really sounds kind of fucked up actually. But they go on the run, and the book is about her escaping, and he obviously has a soft spot for her, and they go on the run. And it's just their love story develops, and how he takes care of her, but how also she doesn't need taking care of, because they are the indigenous people of the land. They have magic. She is so strong, and like, just, I don't know. It's such a good story. It was such a different vibe from what I normally read, which is what I really loved about it. And the fucking ending is, oh my god, it's like, I think from memory it's in the epilogue. I like screamed and like threw the Kindle. There's no second book announced, but I need it. It's definitely, well, they said it was coming. I need to know how that gets resolved. But yeah, if you're looking for something different, like you like romantasy, but we get the same book rolled out over and over and over again, I really would recommend this book. I was drawn into it because someone described it between like the perfect cross of cowboy romance and romantasy. Yes, there's little bits of like a Western kind of setup, but I did not get a cowboy feel from it. It's more like, yes, they ride horses because they live in the desert, not because they are cowboys. But that's what drew me in to read it, and I ended up absolutely loving it. I just wouldn't go in with that vibe. I would go in with like the captor captive, if you love that kind of thing. Because I really did. I thought it was fabulous, and I rated it 4.5 stars. It was just... I think I rated this 4.5 stars because I'd rated this 5-star, and it just wasn't quite as good, as incredible as it was. But I feel like if I went and read this now when I'm having such a shit time with my books, I feel like it would be a 5-star. Like, it was really incredible. That was May done, so I read 4 books. I really had a shit time over the last few months reading numbers wise. I started off the year really strong, and then I've just kind of taken a bit of a dive, which is weird because you'd think winter I'd read more, but I don't know, I found myself reading more like in other seasons. But anyway, I read 4 books, and we move on to June. So this is when I did the same format, but I transitioned to matte paper, which works so much better for like coloring in and everything. So again, I read 4 books. I didn't even read 4 books. I haven't finished the 3rd one. Finished 4 books. Fucking hell. I finished 3 books and I was reading a 4th. This is when I was doing, like, I was marking this book as like still read, even though I wasn't actively reading it. So I changed that up. I don't do that anymore. I only mark it if I actively read that day. I started to figure out my graphs a little bit more. So I was reading a split between, well, I guess I only read 3 books. So one was historical fiction, one was romance, one was romantasy. And I probably should have mentioned this in May. These are my categories. Like, not necessarily what the book is actually categorized into. This is how I categorize them in my brain. So I also primarily read historical fiction and romantasy. Those are my 2 top favorite genres, so that makes sense. I gave 1 book 3.5 stars and 2 5 stars, which is pretty good for reading 3 books. 1 was over 500 pages and 2 were within 3 to 500, which is my normal range. And then 2 were on the TBR and 1 wasn't, so that's not too bad. So, first book up was the 4th book in the Freddie and Grace mystery series, which I kind of went over just before, so I won't go over too much now. But this is the one set in the Scottish Highlands, and again, I just feel like if you want something that's just low stakes, a bit cozy, just something fun, I really enjoyed the series. And if she writes more, I will continue to read them, which is surprising because I didn't think that I would ever say that about a Christian series. Then I didn't know what to put in here. I really don't like this, but I didn't know what to put, so I just did some deco because my next 2 pages were 5-star reads. So we'll start over here with Silver Elite. I absolutely ate this up. I think my Goodreads review says I need to go outside and touch grass because I ate this up. I don't care how overhyped it was or how like generically romantasy, the same thing that we've had wheeled out 100 times. I fucking love this book. I loved Wren and Cross. They are up there in my top, I think they're like 3rd or 4th in my top book couples. Like, I really loved everything about them. I love the story. It was a perfect setup novel, like setup book for a future series. Like, I know the 2nd one is coming out next year and I cannot fucking wait. Obviously there was the cliffhanger at the end, and it was everything I need in like a romantasy. I know when I'm reading a romantasy, I'm not going in expecting it to change the world and expecting this new, exciting, crazy plot. I know what we're gonna get, and I ate it up. Like, it was so good. I loved it. Some really beautiful quotes from Cross to Ren, and I love that she's so like, I liked her that she's so independent, don't need no man kind of vibe, when sometimes I don't like that in romantasy FMCs. I feel like they're so like all powerful, don't need a man, but I liked her. I liked Ren. I don't know what the difference was, to be honest, but I did really like her. And I liked the magic. It wasn't like too over the top. I think the book's actually technically dystopian, but a lot of people are like, is the dystopian in the room with us? I haven't read dystopian ever, so I don't know what it normally is like, but I liked the setting of this, and they're like kind of not world, like I liked reading about how the world was set up, and then I liked that there was a little bit of magic, but not too much. It was still kind of realistic. So love, 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 love. 5 stars. Then I went straight into another 5-star book. I got this as an ARC because I knew this was so up my alley. Like, I really applied for it and wanted it so desperately because it gave me Nocticadia vibes, which is one of my favorite books of the year. It is set in a college or a university in like rural Scotland, so it's just like vibes, like such vibes. And there's obviously like the bad guy, like the bad boy, and the nerdy kind of quiet girl, but there's more to both of them than they know. And I am a sucker for He Falls First. So my number one romance trope of all time is He Falls First for the icy, closed off female. That's it. I love that shit. A Court of Silver Flames being my favorite book of all time, a prime example of that. Also, is it Heartless? Oh, actually, Reckless. Reckless by Elsie Silva, another prime example. So she's not icy, but he fell first, and so that is part of my favorite trope, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I love that she didn't believe that he fell for her first, and he had to prove it. Didn't love the ending because now we're all thrown into turmoil, and we've got to wait for the second one, of course. Really don't know how that's going to be resolved, and I'm interested to read how it is. So yeah, if you want something similar to Nocticadia but without the worms, like a lot of people don't like that kind of setting, that mood, that feel, it's not teacher student but kind of similar, I would try Nightshade by Autumn Woods. I haven't even been saying who they're by. That's by Autumn Woods, that's by Danny Francis, and that is by Pepper Basham. Those were the 3 books that I read in June. So again, a low overall number, but 2 out of 3 being 5 stars is pretty good. And they were like big 5 stars. I loved both of these books. Then I did like a half yearly wrap up. So kind of, or just check in, where are we at? So I absolutely love this page. It's one of my, I think it's my favorite in the whole book. I love this. So, romantasy and romance were my highest 2 genres, which I feel like romance is a little misleading because, for example, like there's 5 books in the Chestnut Springs series, and there's 4.5 books in the Gold Rush Ranch series. That's 10 already. So it's like, I feel like romance books are shorter, and so, and like I read more of them, but I read more romantasy and historical fiction. They were just longer. So it's kind of interesting to see the breakdown, but it's not necessarily like a completely accurate representation. I then read a couple of fantasy books, which I don't like fantasy without romance, so not many of those, and then a couple of mystery. And again, those are my genres, not necessarily what you would find in a bookstore or something. Then my ratings. So I DNF'd 1, which to me is 1 star. Actually I DNF'd a book just recently, but I gave it 2 stars. Anyway, 1 star, 2 stars, I have 1 book, 2.5 stars, I have 2 books. 3 stars, I have 4. 3.5 stars is my second most with like 10. 4 star, 4.5, and then 5 is actually my highest rating, which is kind of crazy. I definitely give out 5 stars pretty willy-nilly. If I love a book and I'm thinking about it in the next couple of days after, it's probably a 5-star read. It doesn't need to change my life, like some people, like that's their thing. For me, not that deep. And then my reading challenge, I was towards the end of 50 books. I think that's 38, which is exciting. And then I set up a 6-month TBR. I was kind of jealous of everyone who had their like 25 in 2025 because this is my first ever reading journal, so I didn't do that. I didn't know that I wanted to do that. So I set up a second half of the year TBR. And this is books that I really want to read, or I have a physical copy of, or are coming out soon. And I just picked, is that 10? No, 9, because it fit nicely on the page. I have so far read Shield of Sparrows. I'm currently reading Sea of Ruin, and Alchemy of Secrets is not out yet, so I am making progress. And this is definitely not a like have to read. It's just in the last 6 months, ideally I would like to read all of these books and have them checked off. So then we move into the second half of the year, and I move into July, and I had a really great month in July. I was really reading and picking up speed. So I read a lot more days than I had been. I ended up finishing 7 books, and I was reading at 8 that I ended up finishing in August. I read almost half were romantasy and half were historical fiction, just under, so it must be like 4 and 3. 3.5 stars was my most popular rating, then 4 stars, and then 4.2 and 4.25 and 4.5 were split. Majority were between 300 and 500 pages, with only a couple being above that. And I had a really bad month for my TBR. I only read 1 book on my TBR. I did have a new release that I was excited about, a ARC to read, and then my TBR, and I ended up on 92% through of my goal. Yeah, I said I discovered reading about water as my setting in May. This is when I really found a true passion of mine. So I love pirate fantasy. It is now one of my it's probably my favorite like subgenre of romantasy is pirate fantasy. I absolutely love the pirate setting. It also ties in because my second favorite, well, not even my second favorite, my other favorite genre is historical fiction, and often pirate fantasy is set back in the age of pirates in the 16 and 1700s, so it ties in really well. And this month I unexpectedly started the month, and unintentionally I should say, with 3 water related books. The first 2 are definitely pirate books. The first one is a pirate and a siren, and then the second one is a priest and a siren. They were pretty spicy. I would say the second one especially is a bit more of a dark romance. I loved the first one. The second one I didn't like quite as much, but I definitely loved the first one. It's called A Ship of Bones and Teeth and Ocean of Sin and Starlight by Karina Hall. Definitely darker than what I've normally read. They're both captor-captive, which I liked the dynamic in this one. Didn't love it so much in this one. Again, underwater setting, underwater and above water, sirens, pirates, witches. I just feel like it's such an, like I'm there in my head. I feel like I can really get into a water setting more than I can in other fantasy worlds. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I believed the love story a lot more than this one. This one, the second book is priest and siren, as I said, and I didn't feel the love story at all. He's pretty fucked up towards her, and then all of a sudden she loves him and wants him back, and I didn't get a love vibe at all. And then all of a sudden they're in love. And it's like, no, you're not. He like tortured you, and yeah, like sexually you loved it, but you didn't like him. I don't know. It just like kind of, it felt like two disjointed stories that kind of came together. But I did like seeing the first couple like grow and mature in this book as well. And then I read The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. I have this really pretty version from Barnes & Noble on my bookshelf, and I thought it would be the perfect I was on holiday. It was my last day of my trip to LA. I'd finished my work conference and I was flying home that night, and I just went up and we stayed in like a hotel in downtown LA, and I just went and sat up on their like pool deck and just like laid out in the sun, because here it's winter and there it was summer, and just like got some sun, ordered some drinks, and I read the whole book in that sitting. And it was fabulous. It was a really great mix of historical fiction, which again I love, and the water setting. Like, it wasn't pirates necessarily, but it was about underwater treasure and diving and that sort of thing. It was also a standalone, which sometimes you just need a standalone just to like not have a fucking cliffhanger. And it was in the format of like the current timeline and the previous timeline, and how do they connect and join. That's my favorite historical fiction to read. I love that. And so yeah, it kind of surprised me because I don't think it rates that well on Goodreads, so I was a bit apprehensive. But it was the perfect like summer, I say beach read even though I wasn't at the beach, but you know the vibe. Next up, I read and listened to Shield of Sparrows, which really impressed me. I wasn't expecting, I don't know, I didn't know what I was expecting. It was kind of Silver Elite and Shield of Sparrows came out at a similar time and was so overhyped. And I obviously devoured Silver Elite, and I was a bit hesitant to read this one. I'm not sure why. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I think it was the perfect, and I literally wrote perfect foundation, the perfect first book. Do I think it changed the world on its own? No. Do I love it as a standalone book? No. But I think it's the perfect world building, relationship building, story like setup for whatever comes in the future. There was a cliffhanger, yes, at the end, but not as in like some of these other books that I am dying to know what happened. More of just like, okay, the next book is going to be good. We're going to get some answers. We're going to understand more. I've seen lots of people say like, oh, I knew it was coming. I knew, like, I don't try and see anything that's coming. I really try and stay in the page at the time. Excuse me. You could probably say that makes me a dumbass as well, but I really didn't see it coming, and so the end did shock me. I also found all of the characters a little hard to understand because they're all like invented, made up characters, obviously based off like a real animal, but I was starting to like get lost in having them blend together, so I ended up putting them in the page to kind of refer to, and I think it really helps visualizing them, like seeing what they actually looked like, because you know when you're reading fantasy and your kind of brain just starts to like skip over either names or words or things that you just don't know what it is, so you just kind of skip over it. That's what I was doing, and so this really helps to understand what each thing is, and I feel like will be really cool going forward. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the audiobook, thought it was great. Then I had a arc of Crown of Briars by R.L. Perez, and this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which ACOTAR is as well, so I wasn't really sure how we were going to deviate from, like, was it going to be that different than what I'd already read? And I ended up absolutely loving this. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is Sibel, who is a human who is sold off to, actually both of these books are the same. They're both brides that are sold off or like contracted off to go marry someone from a different kingdom, now that I think about it. Which makes sense in the Beauty and the Beast context. And she's sold off to marry this, like, he's literally like a devil. Like, that's what he looks like. He's red with horns. and he lives in this magic castle that she like explores, and it's kind of a bit dark, and is the castle against her or is it not, and there's like a war coming, and I don't know, I really loved Sibel as a main character. I thought she was fabulous as a female main character. I didn't love the guy, I can't even think of his name, the devil, but together I liked them. I thought it was a really interesting dynamic. Obviously enemies to lovers kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know, it was an enchanted fairy tale. That's kind of how it was sold on the like ARC description, and I agreed with that. I feel like it felt like Beauty and the Beast, but an adult version, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was a good standalone. Like, she does all interconnected standalones because they're like fairy tales, retellings, but it was the perfect standalone for me. I don't feel the need to read anymore, but if I did, I'm sure I would like them, so really enjoyed that. Then I stumbled across my next Christian fiction, which both times I have read Christian fiction series, I didn't know that's what they were when I signed up for it. I guess you should know, now I know based on the covers, they kind of have a certain look, but I didn't at the time. I was browsing through like some of my favorite historical fiction books to get Goodreads to suggest books similar to this, and then I would go on that book and do books similar. So I was trying to like expand my historical fiction, and this series came up and I immediately downloaded all of them. There's 5 currently, with 1 more coming out in I think November. And the premise just hooked me in. I was so excited. I downloaded them all, and I started reading, and that's when I realized it was Christian fiction. But again, I kind of just tried to read past it. The first one didn't work so well, but it got better. So essentially, these books are all interconnected, and you need to read them in order because the story does progress. Although somewhat a little bit confusingly, but it does progress. And so it is about this line of people who are born with the ability to not time travel, but live in 2 different times at once. And so they'll live in, for example, the first book is set in 1771. So she'll live a day in 1771, she goes to sleep, and then she wakes up in 1914. And then she lives a day in that world, and then like it just goes back and forth until it depends on which mark they're given, but either their 21st or 25th birthday, they have to pick which one they want to live in, and that's the one they live in forever, and their body dies in the other one. And to me that was just like, holy shit, that sounds incredible. I love mixed timelines in historical fiction. It's my favorite. And yeah, so I downloaded and then realized they're Christian fiction, but I still really enjoyed the series. The first one was between 1771 and 1914, and it's called When the Day Comes, and the author is Gabrielle Meyer. Gave it 3.5 stars. I almost DNF'd this book because they got to a point, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but I don't really think any of my followers are going to go read a fucking Christian fiction, historical fiction. So anyway, listen at your own risk. Got to a point in the story where she loved both of her lives. No, she didn't. She loved one of her lives, and that's the one she wanted to pick. She wanted to stay in 1771 because in 1914 she was married off to a like marquise in England, and she lived in America. There's a name for that at that time when the Americans like sold their brides over to England. I can't think what it is, but she was one of them. And he was a disgusting pig who raped her, and of course he raped her twice, and one of the times she gets pregnant. And then I'm sure you can guess where this is going with Christian fiction. All of a sudden the story changes, and in this world, if you have a baby in one world, like, you have to go into that world. You can't, that's just how the magic works, whatever. I can live with that, but it was the fact that all of a sudden she didn't even care about the world that she wanted to live in, and all of a sudden it was this miracle that she was so thankful for, and all she wanted to do was live in 1914 because she was so grateful. Like, that is a pile of shit. That is so unrealistic, and obviously taking away women's choices. And obviously in 1914 she couldn't get an abortion. I fully appreciate that, but it was the language and the total mindset change of not even thinking about what she wanted to do. Her choice was completely taken away from her by the author, and all of a sudden it was this miracle that we were supposed to be happy for her, that she was raped and had to stay in the world that she didn't want to live in. And I was so close to DNFing it, but thankfully it only happened at 80% in, and so I just was like, you just continue, finish it off, you need to know what happens. And I'm glad I did, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have continued on with the rest of the series, and it got much better after that. So that was the first one. Then the second one, she actually has 3 timelines. This is called In This Moment. And I found it a little challenging to keep up with, but the 3 eras were 1861, 1941, and 2001, and you can probably guess what happened with her 2001 timeline. And I think it kind of helped that you knew what was coming. You were just waiting for like that historical event to happen, and I really enjoyed that build up of like how is she going to end up there? How is she going to end up there? How is it going to happen? And the story starts to unfold, and you can see how she's going to be led to be there on September 11. And so I really enjoyed that side of things. And then when the third world kind of finished and it came back to 2, it was a bit more easy to follow, but 3 was a bit chaotic. So yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars again. I enjoyed it, and it made me kind of forget about the transgressions of this book and want to continue the series. And then I got my new Kindle. I got the Kindle Coloursoft, which finally came to Australia, and I made this insert to go in the back, and I thought I would just print it out because I had a blank page. I stuck this in too early and then had a blank page here, so I decided to just print it out and off we go. And then we're into August, which is my current month, and it's not finished, so I will be coming back to that in another video. So hopefully you enjoyed that. You can see how disgustingly dirty my journal is with cat hair. I would never get one of these linen covers again. It's a fucking nightmare. It just, hair sticks to it so bad. But anyway, that's how much I've used so far. So I'm absolutely loving my reading journal. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!